or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Dzień dobry. This is Joanne Janicki, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the August 6th, 2026 issue of the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. I hope everyone is well and tolerating the humidity of August. They call August the dog days of summer. And the humidity is certainly one of the reasons that I think they call it that. It really has to do with constellations and astronomy, but I'll take the humidity. Am-Pol Eagle, I took a quick peek ahead. There are some really good stories, some really exciting stories. One's about lightning. Just caught my attention. So we'll go over that. But as have become my habit, I'm going to start on the last page because that is Polonia's garden. And this article, this feature, Polonia's garden, by Renia Senko-Hanchak, is about blueberry picking. If you've never picked blueberries, you gotta try it. It's so easy. You don't have to be on the ground. You stand up. Everything is waist high, maybe a little bit higher, and you fill your baskets, put them in the freezer, and the next thing you know, you're eating those blueberries in January and being very happy that you took the time to pick the berries. I'll stop talking and I'll start reading. I remember blueberry picking with my mom. We would select baskets to be filled, pack a lunch, and we were off to East Otto, New York. It was a lovely drive down country roads past grazing cows and weathered barns on our way to Burdick Farm. Upon arrival, we would have our baskets weighed and then climb onto an old pickup truck with a canopy and driven out to the fields. We were assigned a row and provided with a tin pail to strap around the waist for easier picking. Plump, juicy berries filled our baskets, and of course, many were sampled fresh off the stem. With our baskets overflowing, we rode back for the final weighing, picked up the latest flyer that provided yearly suggested recipes, and drove home planning pies, coffee cakes, freezing, and fresh berries for breakfast. I recently found a packet of recipe flyers from Burdick Blueberries dating back to 1979. I am fortunate to have a friend who shares my, quote, farming instinct, end quote. Sophie and I grabbed our baskets and we were off. Burdick Blueberries is a third-generation owned farm in operation since 1952. 40 acres of shrubs offer 10 varieties of you-pick berries. There have been some additions since my earlier visits. A guest house is now on the property. A website is available, and an extensive flower patch allows you to pick a bouquet for purchase. Everything else is pretty much the same, including the canopy truck. Sophie and I filled our baskets, enjoyed a picnic lunch, and on the way home, stopped by a farm produce stand for fresh corn. It was a great afternoon. Blueberries are considered a superfood because they contain antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and fiber. They support or protect against cardiovascular disease, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and support brain and cognitive function. I just think they taste good. For Sophie's sources, she used an article from medicalnewstoday.com and It was titled Blueberries, Health Benefits, Facts, and Research. And there are some other additional blueberry farms in the area. The Blueberry Treehouse Farm and the Treehouse Cafe in West Falls, New York. Thorpe's Organic Family Farm in East Aurora, New York. And I've been known to pick blueberries at Child's Blueberry Farm in, let's see, my sister lives in Allegheny, and it's just outside and starts on H, and I can't think of it. I know how to get there. Google Child's Blueberries. They're at a lot of farmers markets. There are a couple of recipes here, what to do with all those blueberries. If you have something to jot notes with or a recorder or something, grab it, because I'm going to describe some of the photographs of Sophie's berry picking experience, and then I'm going to do the recipes. So there is a photograph of Sophie and her friend in the canopied truck. Bright blue. And it's got a fringe. It's like the Surrey with the fringe on top. There are photographs of the basket or the bonek used in Poland for berry picking. And there's also a tin, the metal tin container. There's a close-up of clusters of blueberries on the shrubs, and they are just a gorgeous, gorgeous, rich color. Another photograph of Sophie peeking through the bushes while she's picking. And that's going to get us to the recipes. What to do with all those blueberries? One summer, my parents and I were guests of the Seraphins at their cottage in Barry's Bay, Canada. I have wonderful memories of swimming, water skiing, and fishing. Mom and Pani Donna went into the surrounding woods and picked wild blueberries. That evening, we had blueberry pierogi. So good. So, here's the dough recipe. And then I see the blueberry filling. Okay, I couldn't understand how they could. I'm just looking at this. So these recipes are taken from the Polish Country Kitchen Cookbook by Sophie Hodorowicz-Nab. I'm going to start with the blueberry filling because listeners may likely have their favorite pierogi recipe. And I peeked ahead for the dough, and yes, this recipe has 8 ounces of sour cream. And by my standards, pierogi dough must have sour cream in order to be soft and tender. That's just what I grew up with. So here is blueberry filling. 2 cups fresh or slightly thawed frozen blueberries. 2 tablespoons of flour. Sugar. Doesn't give an amount, so you can do it by taste. And you mix the berries and the flour gently. And then you place the berries in the center of the dough ring. Sprinkle with sugar if tart. And then it refers you back to the pierogi recipe about pinching the dough and boiling the pierogi and then frying the pierogi. So that's a pretty easy blueberry filling. I'll bet you could if you didn't go out blueberry filling. or blueberry picking, I'm sorry, you could easily use, it says frozen blueberries, but you could get a can of blueberry pie filling. Although I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be quite the same, or I don't think as good as using the real deal. Okay, so good job, as usual, by Renya Senko-Hanchak. So now we're back at square one. There is a photograph of a priest blessing people in a church parking lot. And the photo is courtesy of Christine Palczewski. And it says, "One for the road." The name Christopher in Greek means Christ bearer. To commemorate the saint's feast day, a car blessing was held in the main parking lot at St. Stanislaus after recent weekend masses. Father Cole Webster is seen blessing vehicles after the Vigil Mass on Saturday, July 25th, 2026. This is one of the shockers. On August 1st, Reverend Cole Webster submitted his resignation as pastor of St. Stanislaus and St. Catherine Drexel parishes. And we'll go over the article that gives more information, and I will read his letter of resignation, because that certainly is going to shake some things up. But you'll see how it all plays out. I'm going to do an article about the Broadway Market. There is a rendering of the renovated interior of the Broadway Market. And it seems to me that they're going to get rid of the parking ramp on the roof. So then they're going to put in bright skylights. So it will be a very welcoming bright spot. I can still see those pillars, those very, very thick pillars that literally hold up the building. But the skylights are going to be a wonderful addition. So this is by our friend Amber Healy. Renovations moving forward at the Broadway Market. With the unanimous approval of the Buffalo Planning Board last week, the $40 to $45 million project to renovate the Broadway Market is back on track. Earlier this year, during the height of the Easter season, Empire State Development released an update on the long-promised renovation market, which originated in 1888 on a parcel of city-donated land by a group of residents and formalized into the massive 100,000-square-foot building recognized today in the late 1950s. Work on the project, initially slated to start in the spring or summer, is now likely to begin at the end of 2026 or early 2027, says Kathleen Peterson, the market's manager, with completion in 2028. There's a twofold reason for the delay in the renovation, she says. Quote, one, it had to go before the City of Buffalo's Planning Board first, which it did last Monday and was approved, end quote. The massive project also had to go through final design approval, which also was secured, but there have been a lot of moving parts before shovels could begin to hit the ground. We're also trying to secure new market tax cuts, so as all of that's taking place, we're working with the vendors in terms of space during construction and where everyone will be asked to move temporarily when the work begins in earnest, she says. The whole project is anticipated to go out for bids in the fall, with construction to begin between late November and early January. The market will stay open and operational the entire time, she stresses. Customers might just need to pardon the market's dust next year during the lead-in to Easter and Dingus Day holidays. After next spring, that's when bigger, more noticeable changes will start to take shape, she says. Quote, After Easter, you'll really see things start to change. I'm not sure how much of the wall will be in prior to Easter 2027, where they're going to divide the market, because where the Save-A-Lot was, that's going to be production space, Peterson says. She continues, a lot of our vendors make their product in the market, like Greek Guy Bakery and Deb's Delights. They'll move into the production area after Easter. End quote. The wall will help divide the market in a way that restores the original flow of people throughout the building, to the delight of the Buffalo Preservation Board, which also has approved the concepts for the market's renovation. Quote, they're very happy to see this. It's going to really enhance the exterior. We're trying to get it as close as we can to take it back to what it looked like in 1956. But there are some things we just can't do, like having a continuous wall of windows along Lombard Street due to the M&T Bank branch located there. A consulting firm visited the market recently to talk with vendors about the changes and their temporary relocation. And Peterson says the general outlook on the whole project is very positive. Everything so far is falling into place just a little bit later than people hoped for, Peterson says. She continues, I know we were saying last year at this time it's going to start in July of 2026, and here we are, but things just take a little time, end quote. Updates on the construction project will be made regularly on the Broadway Market's website and social media accounts when work begins. Funding for the project is being provided by Empire State Development, with the additional support for the newly formed Broadway Market Management Incorporated, the nonprofit corporation that will operate the market, coming from the Regional Revitalization Partnership. Additional funds will be provided by Downtown Revitalization Initiative funds through the New York Department of State. And that gets us to our first break. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And jumping over to Polish News Bites. Russian missile landed in eastern Poland, Prime Minister says. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk said an object that crashed near Tarnowa, Kolonia in eastern Poland was, quote, in all probability, end quote, a Russian cruise missile. He said it left a roughly 10-meter-wide crater, and that evidence collected, including recovered fragments, suggested it was a Russian KH-101. Tusk said there were no immediate reports of casualties at the crash site, and that Polish authorities had prepared to respond if the object continued flight. NATO partners were also described as being in close contact with Polish officials. The incident was linked to a large-scale Russian strike against targets in western Ukraine and near Kryvyi, with missiles and drones also landing in Poland at different times since Russia's full-scale invasion began in 2022. Poland's defense minister said around 20 objects were observed near Polish airspace overnight, and that pyrotechnical analysis was underway. Poland's military detected the object in the early morning hours and dispatched an F-16 intercept before it disappeared from radar. Prosecutors charge teenager over sabotage alleged for Russian intelligence. Polish prosecutors charged July 16, 2026, an 18-year-old Ukrainian man with carrying out sabotage acts on behalf of Russian intelligence, which prosecutors said were aimed at provoking tensions between Poland and Ukraine. According to Poland's internal security agency, the case includes 47 criminal acts allegedly committed between November 2024 and August 2025, when the suspect was arrested. The alleged actions included desecrating memorials tied to Polish victims of the UPA, the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, associated with killings of tens of thousands of Poles during World War II. Authorities also said the suspect faced accusations related to attempting to fly a drone over Polish President Karol Nawrocki's vehicle during Poland's Armed Forces Day parade in Warsaw on August 15th last year, with the arrest occurring days earlier. Prosecutors said the suspect acted primarily for financial reasons rather than ideology, while still being used, quote, for the benefit of foreign intelligence, end quote. I'm going to read the article about lightning. There is a photograph of a mountain. I guess that's all you can say. There is some kind of a tower on the mountain. It's kind of hard to make out. There's a helicopter hovering just off to the right of one of the peaks at the top. You can see clouds, hazy, very hazy, thin clouds at the top of the mountain. This article is by Ludwika Tomala. Lightning hit 131 tourists on a Polish mountain. Now scientists reveal life-saving lessons. People's clothing caught fire, shoes exploded, and large pieces of rock flew through the air like projectiles. These were the events on Poland's Mount Giewont on August 22nd, 2019, when an exceptionally powerful lightning strike hit a large group of people attempting to evacuate from the summit area. The lightning bolt, estimated at 153,000 amperes, struck the metal cross at the top of the mountain. During the rescue operation, 2 further weaker lightning strikes hit the peak. In total, 131 people were struck by lightning on the Polish side of Giewont, and 4 died, including 2 children. The tragedy prompted Polish researchers to examine the consequences of such a mass lightning incident. Their findings are now helping to improve recommendations for emergency departments and rescuers dealing with similar situations, says Sylwierusz Koszyński, Ph.D., a physician and mountain rescuer who coordinated the medical response from the hospital in Zakopane. Quote, "What happened once can happen again. We must be prepared for such situations. We must have procedures and guidelines," end quote. In July, one of the series of research papers by the team led by Koszyński was published in the journal Communications Medicine. The study examined heart damage caused by lightning strikes. Quote, "Data on lightning strikes worldwide is limited. Some people die on site, and many who suffer a lightning strike do not seek hospital treatment, making it difficult to clearly determine the impact of lightning on the body. We admitted over 100 people struck by the same lightning, so we had globally unique data. We can therefore fill a gap in the literature on the effects of a mass casualty incident caused by lightning," Koszyński said. Researchers collected detailed information from the Giewont victims, including where each person was during the strike, what injuries they sustained, and how they assessed their well-being. They also followed how their health changed over time. One of the most serious effects of a lightning strike is cardiac injury. Lightning is a very short electrical impulse carrying enormous energy. If it overcomes the resistance of the skin, it travels through the body along pathways of least resistance, often involving the nervous and circulatory systems. The passage of a powerful current pulse through the heart can have an effect similar to a defibrillator shock, but instead of restoring circulation, it can stop the heart. The current can also damage the heart muscle and other organs. Quote, "In patients from Giewont, who we suspected could have possible cardiac complications, we tested cardiac enzymes, whose levels increased in the presence of heart muscle damage. Complications can manifest after several hours or even days, and they can be fatal, Koshinsky said. Nearly half, 46% of patients who underwent blood tests showed elevated levels of a high-sensitivity cardiac troponin, a marker of heart muscle damage. Despite such frequent increases in troponin levels, ECG abnormalities were rare. Koshinsky said one person treated after the strike was not sure whether they had actually been struck by lightning, probably because they immediately lost consciousness. Quote, only after being called to the hospital for tests did they learn that their heart had likely been damaged, as the levels of damage markers were very high, he said. Koshinsky explained that there are several types of lightning strike. A direct strike occurs when a person is directly in the path of the main lightning channel. This is the most dangerous type of shock and often results in death. There were no such cases on the Gevant because the lightning struck the cross on the summit. Another type is a side strike, when the main part of the lightning hits a nearby object, such as a tree or rock, and only part of the electrical charge reaches the person. There were many such cases on Gevant, and these victims mainly had elevated heart damage markers. The third type is ground current. In this scenario, the charge that has already hit the ground spreads like a wave and passes between body parts, touching the ground or resting on rocks. If the heart lies in the path of the current, the risk of complications increases. Koshinsky described cases from the American plains where after a lightning strike, an entire flock of sheep died and shepherds suffered burns. The difference was made by which parts of the body were touching the ground and the path the current traveled through. Electricity is not the only destructive force involved in lightning injuries. Another factor is the shock wave produced by the sudden release of energy. Quote, the temperature inside a lightning bolt is comparable to the surface temperature of the sun. As the air around it expands rapidly, the effect is like a bomb exploding. The shock wave and secondary effects associated with it, caused by the evaporation of water from the skin or the explosion of shoes, cause victims to be thrown several meters, Koshinsky said. Lightning can also cause ballistic injuries. On Gevant, fragments of rock and torn pieces of tree trunk were thrown through the air at high speed, knocking people down and causing injuries. Koshinsky described one patient from Gevant whose thigh doctors removed a stone the size of a tennis ball after the strike. Lightning strikes may also cause neurological injuries. A common phenomenon is cheronoparalysis, a specific paralysis of the lower limbs. One injured person's legs turned plum color because of the condition. Quote, this condition usually subsides after a few hours, but in a dangerous situation, it makes escape impossible. Some victims also suffered vision or hearing problems after being struck by lightning, and some still require hearing aids. The Gevant disaster showed that existing rescue procedures are not always designed for such large-scale events. Current rescue procedures and exercises, including avalanche response training, usually cover situations involving up to 10 injured people, not more than 100 victims at the same time. The researcher said further work is needed to develop precise procedures for rescue and triage during mass incidents in difficult mountain terrain. Koshinsky's research also provides conclusions concerning resuscitation. In lowland conditions, every person struck by lightning should be resuscitated immediately, regardless of how much time has passed since the strike. Such victims have a statistically greater chance of regaining consciousness than patients whose cardiac arrest occurred for other reasons. The passage of a powerful electrical current through the body and the stopping of the heart may, although this has not yet been confirmed, create a protective effect similar to hypothermia, helping preserve vital functions. However, in mountain conditions involving many victims, rescuers must assess the causes of cardiac arrest and decide how best to use limited time and resources. Quote, if the cause of cardiac arrest was not electricity but mechanical injuries, a fall, or a shock wave, you must realize that vital functions may not be restored, Koshinsky said. Koshinsky said the Gievant incident showed the importance of taking mountain storms seriously. Quote, check the forecast before going out, but also remember that storms can be unpredictable in the mountains. If you see that the weather is deteriorating and you hear thunder in the distance, simply turn back. There are no safe places in the mountains. The place where lightning will strike is only a matter of probability, he said. He recommended the 30-30 rule for assessing storm danger. If there are fewer than 30 seconds between seeing lightning and hearing thunder, the storm is close enough to pose a threat. The second 30 means that after the last thunder, people should wait 30 minutes before considering the situation safe. If a storm catches someone outdoors, they should avoid tall objects, mountain peaks, and ridges. Quote, if you find yourself near dwarf pine trees in the mountains, it is best to dig into them so as not to protrude above its level, Koshinsky said. In open terrain, people should crouch with their legs as close together as possible to reduce the risk of current flowing between limbs. They should not support themselves with their hands on the ground. Quote, but it is an uncomfortable position. Even rescuers are usually unable to stay in it for 15 or 20 minutes, he said. Koshinsky added that mobile phones do not attract lightning. However, he recommended turning them off during a storm to preserve battery life and protect the device in case it is needed during an emergency. Quote, we collected numerous fried phones, watches, and torn shoes near Gievant, he said. He explained that shoes exploded because moisture usually accumulates in their uppers. When electricity passes through them, the water rapidly evaporates, increasing pressure until the material tears apart. The same process affects air trapped inside sole shoes. Quote, He also described how injured tourists helped one another after the strike. Quote, it was a wonderful example of altruism. Despite their own injuries, people stopped each other's bleeding, lent each other clothes, and helped with evacuation, sometimes until they lost consciousness. Many of these people should be considered heroes, he said. Koshinsky added that mountain rescuers faced a major challenge during the operation. Quote, there were rescuers who were struck by a secondary lightning during the rescue operation, but they ignored it because their mission, providing help, was more important to them, he said. Wow, what an exciting article to read. I've got goosebumps. And that's from PAP Science in Poland. And they have a website, www.scienceinpoland.pl, and I'll bet you can find the article on the website if you wanted to read it again, because I think that was just amazing. Next break. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Okay. As mentioned earlier, Reverend Cole Webster resigns as pastor of St. Stan's, and that's the title of the next article, which includes his letter to parishioners. Reverend Cole T. Webster announced August 1st, 2026, that he would resign as pastor of the Greater East Buffalo family of parishes, St. Stanislaus, St. John Canty, St. Adalbert, and St. Catherine Drexel in Buffalo, and St. John Gualbert in Cheektowaga. Reverend Mariusz Dymek is pastor of Corpus Christi Church in that cluster. Reverend Webster was ordained in 2016. Before being named pastor in 2023, he was temporary administrator of St. Peter's Parish, Lewiston, and served as parochial vicar of St. Aloysius Gonzaga Parish in Cheektowaga. The following is his resignation letter. August 1st, 2026. Dear Greater East Buffalo parishioners, I'm saddened to have to share with you that after much thought, discussion, and prayer, I have submitted my resignation to Bishop Michael Fisher as pastor of St. Stanislaus and St. Catherine Drexel parishes. While this is likely a sudden shock to you, for the past several months, there have been many considerations weighing on my mind. Please also know that while I have submitted my resignation, it has not yet been accepted, which means we will continue on as usual until I receive further direction. I have shared in the past that my parents reside in Florida. They are both in their 70s, and I am an only child. So the possibility of joining them in Florida has been in the back of my mind for some time. Subsequently, I have now begun actively discerning if a transfer to Florida is possible. If it is not, I have asked for a temporary leave of absence and then to be reassigned in Buffalo as a parochial vicar. All is in God's hands, and I'm fully trusting that the Holy Spirit will direct my steps. As you know, I have always been proud of my Polish heritage, and I have been transparent all along in saying that I accepted this assignment because no Polish-speaking priest could be found. I am still very happy to have made the decision to serve historic Polonia, but I have learned that pastoring a bilingual community poses many challenges, especially in trying to drive the parish forward. While I am proud of all that we have accomplishments which I will share with you in a future communication, considering our financial strains, it is time for me to step back with the hope that a Polish-speaking pastor will take my place. Our family of parishes can and should go down to one Polish-speaking pastor while continuing our collaboration with Corpus Christi Parish. Not only would this be acceptable for the size of our congregations, but it will also be of great financial benefit for the stability of the parishes and worship sites. Another factor that has led to me needing to take a step back is that Father Brian Zelenieski has accepted the pastorate of the Catholic community of Buffalo North, and I will be moving out of the Pitta Center September 1st. Father Brian Zelenieski will be moving out of the Pitta Center September 1st. I have been forthright all along in saying that if Father Brian ever moved, I will not reside in the Pitta Center alone. It is simply too big and takes too much work to maintain. To put it plainly, I have given 100% since I arrived and do not have the psychological energy to find alternative accommodations while continuing to shoulder my responsibilities as pastor. It is because of these personal, ministerial, financial, and psychological reasons that I have chosen to step away. As the future of things will slowly come into focus, I will be sure to update you, and we will carry on in the meantime, enjoying the slower pace that August brings. Coming together as a family of parishes has had its challenges, but we have faced them together, meeting my expectations and those of the diocese. I can only hope and pray that new leadership will unite our communities further, so that ultimately you may bear even more abundant fruit. In Christ's peace, Reverend Cole Webster. I have never met Reverend Cole Webster, but because of my reading of the Am-Pol Eagle, I know how important he is and has been to the Greater East Buffalo family of parishes. And so I gasped when I saw the headline that he was resigning. I can only imagine what parishioners are feeling. It's certainly a loss for the community, but we're only human. And the idea of having to take care of elderly parents is a reality that many of us have dealt with or are dealing with. So it's just real. And I have no doubt that he is very sincere in his efforts to be a good priest and keep the parishes together. I'm now going to read an article by James L. Lewicki II, President, Polish American Congress, Western New York Division. Stability matters at St. Stanislaus. The recent resignation of the pastor of St. Stanislaus Bishop and Martyr Church marks another turning point in the history of one of Western New York's most significant Catholic parishes. While pastoral assignments are ultimately the responsibility of the Bishop of Buffalo, this moment also presents an opportunity to reflect on what St. Stanislaus and the broader Polish-American community needs most as it looks forward to the future. St. Stanislaus is far more than a neighborhood church. Founded by Polish immigrants, it is the mother church of Polonia in Western New York and one of the oldest Polish Roman Catholic parishes in the United States. For generations, it has stood as a beacon of faith, perseverance, and cultural identity, serving not only its registered parishioners, but also thousands of Polish Catholics who continue to regard it as their spiritual home. History demonstrates the importance of stable pastoral leadership. During its first 130 years, St. Stanislaus was served by only 5 pastors. Those long pastorates provided continuity of vision, fostered lasting relationships, and allowed both the parish and the surrounding community to flourish spiritually and culturally. The contrast with more recent history is striking. Since the passing of Monsignor John Gabalski just over 2 decades ago, the parish has experienced 6 different pastors. Each served according to his abilities and circumstances, but frequent transitions inevitably make it difficult to establish long-term direction, maintain momentum, and build the confidence that comes with consistent leadership. For a parish of St. Stanislaus' stature, stability is not simply desirable, it is essential. Long-term pastoral leadership allows relationships to deepen, ministries to mature, preservation efforts to advance, and parishioners to move forward with confidence. Historic churches require more than administration. They require vision, continuity, and a shepherd committed to guiding the parish for years rather than seasons. The importance of St. Stanislaus extends well beyond its parish boundaries. It hosts diocesan Polish liturgies, patriotic commemorations, cultural celebrations, and events that unite Polish Americans from across Western New York. Its pastor naturally assumes a role of spiritual leader for the wider Polish American community, becoming a visible link between the diocese and one of its oldest and most devoted ethnic communities. As the Diocese of Buffalo considers the future leadership of St. Stanislaus, this decision represents more than filling a vacancy. It is an opportunity to restore continuity, inspire confidence, and reaffirm the diocese's commitment to preserving one of its most treasured historic parishes. The next pastor should be someone who appreciates the parish's rich spiritual heritage, respects its unique traditions, embraces its role within the broader Polish-American community, and perhaps most importantly, is prepared to provide the stable long-term leadership that has defined St. Stanislaus at its very best. Polonia is not simply looking for another pastor. It is hoping for a shepherd who will remain, lead with conviction, and help ensure that St. Stanislaus continues to serve future generations with the same faith and strength that have characterized its remarkable history. Very thoughtful from James Lewicki II. I'm going to do our last break, and then we'll get some sports in, and I haven't even gotten to Polonia's calendar. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Polonia's calendar. Saturday, August 8th, Derek Kaczorowski Memorial College Scholarship Fundraiser at Depew Polish Falcons at 6:30 p.m. For tickets or information, contact Jim Kaczorowski. Phone number 716-864-4642. Again, 716-864-4642. Thursday, August 13th, Research Night, Breaking Through Members' Brick Walls. The Polish Genealogical Society of New York State meeting hosted by members at Erie One Bosse's 355 Harlem Road in West Seneca, New York, from 7 to 9 p.m. Saturday, August 15th, a German-Polish celebration. Spring Garden, 3838 Two Rod Road in East Aurora. The park opens at 3 p.m. Food is available at 3:30 p.m. Performances by Polish heritage dancers of Western New York and SGTV Edelweiss dancers. Music by Captain Tom and the Hooligans from 4 to 8 p.m. Admission is only $6. On Saturday, August 15th, Our Lady's Street Fair and Harvest Blessing Mass, Church of St. Casimir, 160 Cable Street in Buffalo, New York, from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Outdoor Mass, weather permitting, procession at 6:30, Mass at 7 p.m. The fair includes ice cream social, bake sale, food court, palm weaving demo, Wycinanki sale, and more. Sunday, August 23rd, all Polish composer concert by the Amherst Chamber Orchestra, St. Stanislaus Church, 389 Peckham Street, Buffalo, 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon, sponsored by the Polish Arts Club of Buffalo. Free will offering, encore garden party following the concert at the former convent on Wilson Street. Space is limited. Purchase $20 advance tickets to reserve. Another phone number, 716-863-3631. Again, 716-863-3631. Tuesday, August 25th, the final Our Lady of Częstochowa service at Queen of Angels Parish. It's a secondary worship site, corner of Electric and Warsaw Streets in Lackawanna, New York, at 6:30 p.m. Father Casper Zach presiding, light refreshments to follow in the parish hall. That covers August. That final Our Lady of Częstochowa service at Queen of Angels Parish, formerly St. Michael's Parish. When I was growing up, I knew it as St. Michael's Parish, and I still often refer to it as that for people who don't recognize the change of name. It's just another sad event for Lackawanna. St. Barbara's is gone, St. Hyacinth's is gone, and St. Michael's, the last of the Polish parishes in Lackawanna, New York. Very sad. Let's see here. Tom Tadapachki, Polonia Press Box. Lewandowski on fire. There is a photograph of Robert Lewandowski holding his jersey, and a Major League Soccer photo says that he is considered one of the greatest players of his generation. Let's see what Tom Tadapachki has to say. A great deal has been going on in the world of sports lately that I want to catch up with. It starts with the news that Poland's all-time leading goal scorer, Robert Lewandowski, has come to North America to play for the League Soccer Chicago Fire. The 37-year-old soccer superstar made his official MLS debut for the Chicago Fire on July 22nd, playing 63 minutes in a 3-2 road loss against Inter Miami. Earlier this summer, he signed a 2-year deal, making him one of the league's best paid players. It's hoped that he will help Chicago continue to emerge as one of the league's top contenders. Leva is also expected to draw new fans to the team as the Fire looks to sell tickets for the new stadium, McDonald's Park, that will open in the South Loop area of the city in 2028. The 6'1", 179-pound striker began his legendary career in his native Poland and grew to stardom for Borussia Dortmund, Bayern Munich, and Barcelona. He won 10 Bundesliga titles between his time with Dortmund and Bayern, then 3 La Liga titles with Barcelona. Lewandowski won the 2020 Champions League with Bayern. He has scored 89 goals in 167 appearances for the Polish national team. Leva is the 8th Polish-born player in club history. Back in 1998, Chicago won its first MLS Cup with a squad that featured Piotr Nowak, Roman Kosecki, and Jerzy Podbrozny. In addition, Fire coach Greg Berhalter is Polish on his mother's side. He's also related to baseball legend Karl Jastrzemski as a second cousin, and Karl is also his godfather. Gronk. Robert Gronkowski, a 4-time Super Bowl winning tight end, hockey great, David Legwan, outstanding Green Bay Packer, offensive tackle Brian Beluga, and the late ace UCLA basketball All-American Dave Meyer entered the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame last month. The always colorful Gronk was the star attraction as the event drew over 500 attendees. Western New York native Gronkowski talked about his great-grandfather, Ignatius Gronkowski, who competed in the 1924 Paris Olympics as a cyclist. That was the beginning of the Gronkowski name being, quote, known for the sports side of life, end quote. He also spoke of his visit to Poland, joking that the best part was that none of the Polish people knew who he was. He said that every athlete should know that, quote, your background, your family history, and your culture are strengths, end quote. The many great names in the Hall of Fame should remind everyone that excellence and success comes from dedication, sacrifice, and perseverance. Legwand, who played his final NHL season in Buffalo, also talked about his memories of Polish traditions while growing up in Michigan. He played most of his career with Nashville, playing his final season in Buffalo. Bulaga, the outstanding offensive lineman, talked about growing up in a Polish household. He recalled the delicious Polish food he ate, though he passed on czarnina and śledzie. Ha! Not me. While in college at Iowa, he had the Polish words siła and pycha, siła, strength, and pycha, pride, tattooed on his bicep. Myers, a basketball standout at UCLA and in the NBA, died of cancer in 2015 at the age of 62. His older sister, Ann Myers Drysdale, was previously inducted into the Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. I'm going to bounce over to Warsaw. Warsaw hosts Hoops World Cup. While I was in Warsaw, I was able to see the 2026 FIBA 3x3 I think that's 3-on-3 Basketball World Cup, which took place in Poland's capital in June at Parade Square next to the Palace of Culture and Science. The Polish men, Marcel Ponitka, Michał Sokolowski, Adam Waczyński, and Przemysław Zamoyski, finished 18th overall. The Polish women, Klaudia Gierczyn, Anna Pawłowska, Weronika Telenga, and Aleksandra Zimborska, were 15th. In the men's tournament, Latvia took home the men's gold, while the U.S. won the women's competition. The Olympic Games Los Angeles 2028 will see 12 teams per gender compete in 3-on-3 basketball, and the World Cup events will help determine who will make the field. The tournament drew over 100,000 visitors, and I was impressed with the family-friendly festival atmosphere with music, food trucks, and giveaways, as well as the enthusiasm of the Polish fans. A photograph, actually, of someone I know with a sister, a nun, and another woman. Radio show highlights a first trip to Poland. Let's see what it has to say. Samantha Maziarz-Christman, a writer for the Buffalo News, recently returned from her first trip to Poland, where she taught English, and visited the village where her grandfather's family came from. Maziarz-Christman shared her story during the recent episode of the Polish-American radio program. The episodes can be heard anytime at polishprogram.com. The episode also commemorates Warsaw Uprising with music and an interview with a veteran of the battle, which began in August of 1944. Program host is Andy Gołębiowski. The program can also be heard live every Saturday at 11 a.m. online at webrradio.com or on the radio at 1440 a.m. In the photograph, you have Samantha Maziarz-Christman on the left and her sister on the right, Carrie Maziarz-Simonin, with sister Arcadia, who welcomed the Maziarz sister in their ancestral parish near Rzeszów. So that photograph was taken in Poland. I'm so happy for my friend Samantha Maziarz-Christman on her first trip to Poland. That's going to wrap up for today. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the August 6th, 2026 issue of the Am-Pol Eagle. We read from the Am-Pol Eagle every Saturday at 3 p.m. Your reader has been Joanne Yanitsky. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Island Dispatch. Following that, at 5 o'clock is the Lockport Union Southern Journal, and at 6 o'clock, we have the Jamestown Post-Journal. Stay with us for these readings and more. If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which